Imagine yourself in the frozen ruins of a once vibrant city, where the air is thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder and burning rubble. It's the winter of 1942-1943, and the streets of Stalingrad echo with the relentless roar of artillery, the crack of sniper rifles, and the desperate cries of soldiers locked in a fight to the death. This isn't a scene from a Hollywood blockbuster, it's the raw, unforgiving reality of the Battle of Stalingrad, a pivotal clash that pitted the might of Nazi Germany against the unyielding resolve of the Soviet Union. Over 5 months, this urban inferno claimed nearly 2 million lives, marking a turning point in World War II that shattered Hitler's dreams of conquest and signaled the beginning of the end for the Third Reich, where we delve into the untold stories of World War II with the dramatic flair of channels like WW2 Tales and WW2 Stories. Today, we embark on an exhaustive journey through the Battle of Stalingrad, a tale of strategy, sacrifice, and survival drawn from first-hand accounts, military archives, and expert histories. Strap in, this is no quick recap but a deep dive into one of history's most brutal battles. To fully grasp the enormity of Stalingrad, we must rewind to the broader canvas of World War II. By mid-1942, Adolf Hitler's Wehrmacht had swept across Europe like an unstoppable storm. Poland fell in weeks, France in months, and the Low Countries crumbled under the Blitzkrieg's lightning strikes. Emboldened by these victories, Hitler turned his gaze eastward, launching Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, the largest invasion in history, with over 3 million German troops surging into the Soviet Union. The Nazis aimed to crush communism, seize vast resources, and enslave or exterminate the Slavic peoples in line with their racist ideology. Initial successes were staggering. By December 1941, German forces had advanced to the gates of Moscow, capturing millions of Soviet prisoners and vast swaths of territory. But the harsh Russian winter, coupled with fierce Soviet resistance, halted the advance. Stalin's Red Army, though battered, held on, buying time to regroup. Hitler, undeterred, shifted focus southward for 1942's summer offensive, codenamed Operation Blue. The objectives were the oil-rich Caucasus regions and the symbolic city of Stalingrad, named after Joseph Stalin himself, situated on the Volga River, a vital artery for Soviet supply lines. Capturing Stalingrad would not only sever the Volga but also deliver a psychological blow to Stalin and boost German morale. As General Friedrich Paulus, commander of the Sixth Army, later reflected in his captured diaries, the Führer believes Stalingrad will break the Bolshevik spirit. Little did he know it would break his own army instead. The German forces, comprising the Sixth Army and elements of the Fourth Panzer Army, totaled around 300,000 men, supported by Luftwaffe air superiority and Romanian, Italian, and Hungarian allies on the flanks. Opposing them was the Soviet 62nd Army under General Vasily Chukov, initially outnumbered but bolstered by Stalin's infamous Order 227, not a step back, which mandated execution for retreaters. The battle erupted on August 23, 1942, with a massive Luftwaffe bombing raid that reduced much of Stalingrad to rubble. Waves of Stuka dive bombers screamed overhead, dropping thousands of tons of explosives, turning the city into a labyrinth of craters and shattered buildings. Eyewitness accounts from Soviet civilians, like those compiled in Antony Beevor's seminal book, Stalingrad, describe the horror: flames engulfing wooden homes, people fleeing into the Volga only to drown under collapsing embankments, and the sky blackened by smoke. By evening, over 40,000 civilians lay dead, but the bombing inadvertently aided the defenders by creating ideal terrain for urban warfare, piles of debris that served as natural fortifications. German ground troops advanced swiftly at first, pushing into the city's outskirts. Paulus's forces, battle-hardened from previous campaigns, employed combined arms tactics: panzers leading assaults, infantry following to clear pockets of resistance, and artillery providing cover fire. But as they entered the urban core, the fighting devolved into a nightmarish house-to-house struggle. Stalingrad's factories, like the massive tractor factory and Red October steel works, became fortified strongholds. Soviet soldiers, often armed with little more than rifles and Molotov cocktails, fought from basements, attics, and sewers. Chukov's strategy was simple yet brutal: Hug the enemy, keep Germans so close that their air and artillery support became ineffective for fear of friendly fire. One iconic episode from these early days is the defense of Pavlov's house, a 4-story apartment block held by Sergeant Yakov Pavlov and a platoon of 25 men for 58 days. Facing repeated German assaults, they turned the building into a fortress, mining approaches, setting up machine gun nests, and sniping from windows. German maps reportedly marked it as a fortress rather than a house. Pavlov's men, a mix of Russians, Ukrainians, and even a Kazakh sniper, epitomized the multicultural Soviet resistance. As one survivor recounted in oral histories preserved by the Stalingrad Museum, "We fought for every brick, every stair. The Germans came wave after wave, but we held." The house became a symbol of defiance, with Chukov joking that more Germans died trying to take it than in the fall of Paris. As September turned to October, the battle intensified. The Germans controlled 90% of the city at one point, but the remaining Soviet pocket along the Volga refused to yield. Reinforcements crossed the river under cover of night, ferried by boats amid shelling. Snipers like Vasily Zaitsev, immortalized in the film Enemy at the Gates, racked up hundreds of kills, dueling with German marksmen in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Zaitsev's memoirs detail his techniques, using dummies to draw fire, camouflaging in rubble, and waiting hours for the perfect shot. His tally of 225 confirmed kills boosted Soviet morale, with propaganda leaflets proclaiming, "The hunter has become the hunted." Meanwhile, the human cost mounted horrifically. Soldiers on both sides endured starvation, disease, and freezing temperatures. German rations dwindled as supply lines stretched thin, while Soviets scavenged from ruins or ate rats. Dysentery and typhus ravaged the ranks. One German soldier's letter home, intercepted and later published in Last Letters from Stalingrad, poignantly captures the despair. "The city is a graveyard. We fight ghosts in the shadows." On the Soviet side, women played crucial roles, not just as nurses but as combatants. Ludmila Pavlichenko, though more famous for Odessa, inspired Stalingrad's female snipers who claimed dozens of kills. Hitler's obsession with Stalingrad blinded him to the bigger picture. He diverted resources from the Caucasus, weakening other fronts. Stalin, advised by generals like Georgy Zhukov, saw an opportunity. While the city bled, the Soviets secretly amassed forces for a counteroffensive, Operation Uranus. Over 1 million troops, including fresh Siberian divisions hardened by winter warfare, were positioned on the weakly held flanks manned by Axis allies. On November 19, 1942, Uranus launched with thunderous artillery barrages. Soviet tanks, superior T-34s with sloped armor, smashed through Romanian lines north and south of Stalingrad, encircling Paulus's 6th Army in a pincer movement by November 23. Suddenly, 250,000 Germans and allies were trapped in a Kessel, cauldron, cut off from supplies. Hitler, from his Bavarian retreat, ordered them to hold, promising air resupply by Hermann Göring's Luftwaffe. But the airlift failed miserably. Harsh weather, Soviet anti-aircraft fire, and inadequate planes delivered only a fraction of needed tons daily. Starvation set in, with horses slaughtered for meat and soldiers boiling boot leather. Inside the pocket, conditions deteriorated into apocalypse. Frostbite claimed limbs, men froze to death in foxholes. Paulus, gaunt and ill, pleaded for breakout, but Hitler refused, promoting him to field marshal, a hint to commit suicide rather than surrender, as no German field marshal had ever been captured. Desperate attempts to relieve the pocket, like Operation Winter Storm led by Erich von Manstein, faltered against Soviet reinforcements. The Soviets tightened the noose, pounding the encircled forces with Katyusha rockets, nicknamed Stalin's organs, for their wailing sound. Street fighting continued, but now Germans were the defenders, holed up in cellars. Acts of heroism abounded. A German medic operating without anesthesia, Soviet engineers building ice bridges over the Volga. But morale crumbled. Desertions rose, and suicides became common. By January 1943, the end neared. Paulus split his forces into northern and southern pockets. On January 31st, he surrendered the southern group, including himself, defying Hitler's expectations. The northern pocket capitulated on February 2nd. Of the 91,000 prisoners taken, only 6,000 survived Soviet camps to return home post-war. Total casualties: Soviets lost over 1 million, Germans nearly 800,000. The battle scale dwarfs others. More died here than in all U.S. World War II combat deaths. Stalingrad's aftermath reshaped the war. It shattered the myth of German invincibility, boosting Allied morale and encouraging resistance movements across Europe. For the Soviets, it forged national unity, with Stalingrad renamed Volgograd but honored eternally. Medals like the Hero of Stalingrad were awarded, and the Mamayev Kurgan Memorial, with its towering Motherland Calls statue, stands as a testament. Personal stories humanize the statistics. Take Anatoly Kozlov, a Soviet infantryman whose diary entries describe charging through blizzards. "The snow is red with blood, but we push on for Mother Russia." Or German Lieutenant Wilhelm Hoffmann, whose journal ends abruptly, "This city is hell, I fear we are doomed." Strategically, Stalingrad diverted German resources, weakening them for Kursk and Normandy. It marked the Red Army's shift from defense to offense, paving the way to Berlin. Historians like David Glantz argue it was the war's true turning point, more than Midway or El Alamein. Yet, the battle's legacy is bittersweet. Stalin's purges post-victory executed heroes like Chukhov's aides, paranoid of their popularity. German POWs endured forced labor, mirroring Nazi atrocities. Civilians, the forgotten victims, rebuilt from ashes. In reflecting on Stalingrad, we see war's futility, ideologies clashing in a meat grinder, leaving scars on generations. As Chukhov wrote in his memoirs, Stalingrad was not just a battle, it was the soul of the people. It reminds us of resilience's power and hatred's cost. The urban warfare at Stalingrad pioneered tactics still studied today. Chukhov's Rattenkrieg, Rat War, fighting in sewers and ruins, influenced modern conflicts like Aleppo or Grozny. Snipers' roles evolved, with Zaitsev training hundreds, his methods in military manuals. Logistics were decisive. German supply lines, over 1,000 miles from home, collapsed under partisan attacks and winter. Soviets, fighting on home soil, drew from endless manpower reserves, over 20 million served. Cultural impact: films like Stalingrad, 1993, and books like Vasily Grossman's Life and Fate capture the essence. Grossman's epic novel, based on his reporting, weaves personal tales amid the chaos, censored until 1980 for critiquing Stalinism. Key figures: Paulus, post-capture, joined anti-Nazi groups, testifying at Nuremberg. Zhukov became a Soviet icon, later demoted by Khrushchev. Hitler never recovered psychologically, his decisions growing erratic. Environmental toll: the Volga ran red, wildlife decimated, soil poisoned by unexploded ordnance, issues persisting decades later. Stalingrad's lessons: overextension dooms empires, as Napoleon learned in 1812. Underestimating resolve, Hitler's fatal flaw. Zooming in on phases: initial assault, August-September 1942, Germans capture suburbs, but factory districts hold. Luftwaffe dominance wanes as Soviet fighters arrive. Mid-battle, October-November, the grain elevator, siege, a massive silo defended by 50 Marines for days against tanks. They repelled 10 attacks daily, using grenades from upper levels. Encirclement: November, Uranus's success due to intelligence from spies like Richard Sorge, who warned of no Japanese threat, freeing Siberian troops. Pocket phase: December-January, Christmas 1942 was grim. Germans received propaganda airdrops instead of food. Suicides peaked. Surrender: Paulus's radio to Hitler: the Sixth Army, true to its oath, has fought to the last man. Ironic as he lived. Post-battle: Soviets paraded prisoners through Moscow, a morale boost. Rebuilding Stalingrad took years, with women laboring amid ruins. Global reactions: Churchill hailed it as the end of the beginning. Roosevelt sent aid via Lend-Lease, strengthening alliances. In memoirs, soldiers from both sides express shared humanity. A German private wrote of trading cigarettes with Soviets during lulls, rare moments of peace. Stalingrad scale, equivalent to destroying Chicago multiple times. Casualties rival entire wars. Why Stalingrad? Symbolic value amplified the fight. Neither leader would yield. Tactical innovations. Soviets used storm groups, small teams with submachine guns for close quarters. German errors. Dividing forces, ignoring flanks. Soviet strengths. Camaraderie, propaganda like, for the motherland. Women in Stalingrad. Over 800,000 Soviet women served, many in combat. In Stalingrad, they manned anti-aircraft guns, piloted planes, and fought as infantry. Children, sons of the regiment, orphans adopted by units, running messages under fire. Animals, dogs trained to carry explosives under tanks, horses pulling sleds in snow. Medical horrors, field hospitals overflowed, amputations without anesthesia common. Psychological warfare, loudspeakers blared surrender appeals, mixed with tango music to demoralize. Artillery duels, god of war, Soviets called it, barrages lasted hours. River crossings, under constant fire, boats sank, but reinforcements persisted. Factory fights, tractor factory produced tanks amid battle, workers repairing vehicles while fighting. Pavlov's house details, 62 days of resistance, repelling even German panzers with makeshift anti-tank rifles and captured weapons. Zaitsev's duel, a tense showdown with Major Konings, head of a German sniper school, likely exaggerated by propaganda yet rooted in real sniper duels. Civilian survival, families lived for months in basement bunkers, foraging at night across no man's land for food and water. Winter's grip, temperatures plunged to -30°C, weapons froze, metal stuck to skin, and frostbite became epidemic. Air battles. Luftwaffe clashed daily with Soviet fighters including aces like Lydia Litviak, the White Lily of Stalingrad, who downed over a dozen enemy aircraft. Relief attempts. Manstein's rescue force pushed within 30 miles, but Paulus, bound by Hitler's orders, refused to break out. Final days. German troops boiled bones, scraped frozen soup from kettles, and ate wallpaper paste mixed with snow. Surrender ceremony. An emaciated Paulus met Soviet generals inside a damp basement room, the air thick with smoke and defeat. Aftermath. POWs. Tens of thousands marched to camps, many collapsing on the way from hunger and cold. Reconstruction. Stalin prioritized symbolic rebuilding, monuments, factories, and hero memorials rose first. Legacy in Russia. Victory Day parades and school lessons keep Stalingrad central in national memory. In Germany, long taboo, later acknowledged through museums and scholarship after reunification. Comparative history, often compared to Verdun, a grinding, senseless slaughter turned into national legend. Lessons for today. Urban warfare in conflicts like Ukraine echoes its brutal street-to-street fighting. Stalingrad's message. Endurance and unity can outlast even the most determined aggression. Expanding prelude. Operation Barbarossa unleashed 3.8 million Axis troops with more than 3,300 tanks and nearly 3,000 aircraft, the largest invasion in history. The Red Army, paralyzed by Stalin's purges and disbelief, suffered catastrophic losses reaching 4.5 million men in 1941 alone. Encirclements at Minsk, Smolensk, and Kiev captured entire armies. Moscow's defense in winter, commanded by Zhukov, pushed Germans back more than 150 miles but cost 700,000 Soviet casualties. Operation Blue. Hitler divided army groups south to seize the Caucasus oil fields and Stalingrad. Panzers captured Rostov but stalled amid fuel shortages. Stalin appointed Yeryomenko to the southern front and Chukov to defend the city. Chukov's style. Fearless, abrasive, and directing the 62nd Army from bunkers just yards from German lines. German leadership. Paulus, a brilliant planner but inexperienced commander, relied heavily on his more forceful chief of staff Arthur Schmidt. Allied flanks crumble. Romanian forces, poorly equipped with obsolete artillery and few anti-tank guns, were overwhelmed when Operation Uranus struck with 160,000 Soviet soldiers on the northern flank alone. Uranus planning. Zhukov's deception masked the buildup through mock troop movements and fake radios. Execution. Northern and southern pincers met at Kalix, sealing the 6th Army inside the Kessel. Life in the pocket. 22 divisions endured starvation, disease, and relentless bombardment. Airfields like Potomnik became chaos with burning planes, frozen corpses, and endless wounded. Goring's false promise. Only about 100 tons of supplies arrived daily instead of the necessary 500, leaving fuel so scarce that tanks and aircraft became useless. Manstein's winter storm. A bold armored thrust advanced 50 kilometers but stalled when Soviets launched Operation Little Saturn. Paulus's impossible choice. Breakout meant disobeying Hitler and abandoning 20,000 wounded, so he stayed. Starvation. Soldiers lost half their body weight, some hallucinating, others scavenging frozen horse carcasses. Soviet propaganda. Leaflets offered warm food, medical care, and survival, tempting many frostbitten German soldiers. Christmas airdrop. Air crates filled with condoms instead of ammunition highlighted Luftwaffe disarray. Endgame. Operation Ring crushed the pocket sector by sector. Strecker's northern group held out until ammunition vanished. POW fate. Of 91,000 captured, only around 5,000 returned home years later. Soviet casualties. About 1.1 million, nearly half of them dead. German losses. Around 147,000 killed and 91,000 captured. Civilians. Only 10,000 survived within the ruins of a pre-war city of 500,000. Economic aftermath. Stalingrad's factories, the tractor plant Red October and Barricadi, were reduced to shells but later rebuilt, symbolizing Soviet resilience. Psychological impact. Stalingrad ended Germany's aura of invincibility and boosted Allied confidence for planning D-Day. Post-battle events. Soviets recaptured Kharkov, then met the Wehrmacht at Kursk, where Germany's last major offensive failed. Personal stories. Maria Roklina, a Soviet nurse who dragged dozens of wounded from open streets under sniper fire. Hans Schroeder, a German tanker who described T-34s burning like torches before his unit starved inside the Kessel. Culture. The Sacred War became the unofficial anthem of Soviet resistance. Books. Historians like Michael Jones and Antony Beevor detail both strategic and human elements. Archaeology. Today, rusted helmets, bones, and ammunition remain buried beneath Volgograd's parks. Memory. The Panorama Museum and Mamayev Kurgan honor the fallen and veterans' reunions in the 1990s, humanized former enemies. Education. Stalingrad is taught worldwide as a defining case of total war. Modern relevance. Urban warfare doctrines in Iraq, Syria, and Ukraine all trace lessons to Stalingrad's brutal street fighting. Conclusion. Stalingrad stands as one of history's greatest turning points, a testament to endurance, sacrifice, and the terrible cost of war. It shows that even the strongest armies can falter when arrogance blinds leadership, and that ordinary people can become extraordinary when survival demands it.